Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Veterinary Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for developing a successful veterinary practice and career. I am Naren Arulrajah, the founder of the Veterinary Business Podcast and one of the co-hosts. On this podcast, we bring you insights and expertise from industry-leading doctors, experts, and thought leaders. We cover a wide range of topics, including practice management, marketing strategies, leadership development, HR best practices, and much more. Whether you are a practicing veterinarian, a practice owner, a practice manager, or a student studying to be a veterinarian, this podcast is tailored to help you navigate the challenges and opportunities in the business of veterinary medicine. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to visit the website veterinarybusinessinstitute.com for additional resources, tools, and support to support your growth. And remember, you can also subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and other popular podcast platforms. Today, I have an amazing guest, Dr. Joel Parker. He's a veterinarian and co-founder of Veterinary Practice Solutions. Plus, he's one of our co-hosts. So he is a partner in crime, so to speak. We are doing this together. So Dr. Parker, welcome. Before we jump into today's topic, which is the Standing Ovation Practice, I just want you to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you are a veterinarian. I know you ran a practice, and I know you help other practice owners. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, and why you are passionate about veterinary medicine.
I'll try and be as brief as I can. Naren, thanks so much. Great to be on here. Great to be interviewed by you. This is super fun. Listen, I grew up as a kid, that lived, in kind of a rural area. I had flying squirrels and chipmunks and crows living in the house, all that kind of crazy stuff. And so a really, really big love of animals, and went into veterinary medicine. I wouldn't say I was like an A student. I wasn't. I didn't find study naturally really easy, but I had a really big burning desire to be a veterinarian, and graduated one, and went to work in a practice on graduation, and within a couple of years was quite disappointed, I think, with the quality of medicine. I think I expected certain things to be up here, and then as you engage in life, some things are down here. And that caused me to start looking for what was a great practice, which, by the way, is my advice to you as new graduates out there, is that, find a good mentor. And they don't even have to be in your practice. They can be somewhere else. Naren, I found a good mentor who was running the smallest AHA practice in North America. So I started doing relief work for him, and also doing relief work at a local emergency practice to try and get my surgical chops up and so forth. And after a couple months of doing that, the owner of this practice said, Joel, you should buy the practice. The clients really like you, and I'm burnt out. I've been doing this for 14 years. So like a true entrepreneur, Naren, you rustle up the money. In fact, that's another topic at some point in time, isn't it? Is how to get financed to start your veterinary practice dream. And I'd love to. I can give you guys some people to talk to on that, because initially I went into a local bank and they said, "Oh, Sonny, save up some money and come back." I think it was the bank I had my checking account with. They were not a business bank, but eventually, being a good entrepreneur, and that's for everybody looking at starting your own practice, don't give up, have some tenacity in your vision. And so I ended up finding a business bank, and the guy said, yeah, let's do it. So I put together some money, borrowed some money from a relative, and got finance, kind of a hybrid finance of both the owner financed me and the bank plus my money. And I was into practice ownership. Naren, I lasted about 3 years until I hit the wall. I would say 3 years of faking it, kind of dabbling in it as management wise. I figured all I had to do was have an AHA sticker in the window and I'd be super busy. And the practice I bought was in the highest per capita income community of the country, right? And so I thought, this is easy. I don't need to worry about money. All I got to do is practice veterinary medicine, and then everybody will pay the bills. And after 3 years, I was having clients leaving the practice because I wouldn't bother giving them estimates. And this is another practice tip. Just charge up bills at your own peril. Never bypass the pet owner's power of choice, which I was doing. And so I was losing clients. And I got to a point, I think it culminated, Naren, where I was in the middle of surgery. and we weren't busy enough. We weren't making enough money. I was working 60, 80 hours a week. trying to make this thing go right. And the bank manager was on the phone in the middle of the surgery saying, Dr. Parker, you got to put some money in the account. I'll hold paychecks for 48 hours. I'm going, oh, now my story for all of you listening is very different from, we all have our different stories. This is just mine. Yours may be that you have so much work you don't know what to do with, and you never see your kids go to sleep, right? Or you never tuck your kids into bed. We've all got our different stories. The take-home message here is that my concept of veterinary practice management was that payday was every 2 weeks. Right? That's really the extent of my knowledge, and that I was focusing on being a veterinarian. And so I kind of hit the wall like a long distance runner and started looking around for how do I figure this thing out? The first person I went to was my accountant, and he said, Joel, here's your profit loss statement. It's in the red. You don't have to pay taxes this year. And Naren, I want you, if you look at this here, that's like you bringing your dog to me and saying, Naren, your dog's diabetic, but I don't know how to fix diabetics. And that's my accountant said, Joel, you're not making any money, but I don't know how to run your practice. So it was the oddest thing as I went to get objective data, like the profit loss statement, to try and manage the practice like we manage patients. Like a veterinarian, Naren, we manage patients off of blood work and radiology, like objective data. I was trying to I had that concept we could do that in a practice, but I couldn't find it until there was a practice management company in the late 80s and said, here's this management system that is very, very evidence-based. And you start tracking numbers and you start managing off the numbers. And there's formulas to use that if your new clients are down, then you would follow the formula to get them go up. And I went, that's what I'm looking for. So I signed on with this group and started studying this management system. And my world opened up. This was the other half of my education. This was all the stuff we never got in vet school, from marketing to hiring to training to finance to how to sell treatment plans, how to communicate. Naren, one of the courses I swear I'm going to develop here at Veterinary Practice Solutions is I'm going to call it Chit Chat 101, effective communication skills for the new associate, the new graduate, because we're never really taught on that, are we?
Absolutely.
The long story short here is that I went from working 60 to 80 hours as a single doctor into developing in a highly competitive area, 17 practices within 5 miles, shortage of DVMs and staff. I went and developed a 3.5 doctor practice, where as a practice owner, I worked half as a doctor. I worked about 20 hours a week. I did all the endoscopy and specialized surgery and saw the clients I wanted, but I spent the other amount of time being an entrepreneur and developing the practice. So as I got working less and developing more of my business management skills, I created what I coined the term a standing ovation practice. And within a period of time, I also had a mobile endoscopy company. I'm kind of like a serial entrepreneur like yourself, what I call a vetrepreneur, right? And and so I was running the practice. I started a mobile endoscopy company called Veterinary Endoscopy Solutions. Fiber optics for unusual places was our tagline. And then I started a manufacturing company of a very high-end line of dog products called Canine Equipment Gear for Dogs. And I was importing materials into my hometown of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, where there were a lot of Vietnamese sewers there. I was bringing materials in from Germany and South Carolina and all over the place and manufacturing and exporting out. And so that was very, very exciting times, right? I learned a lot about, material planning and cash flow planning and Excel spreadsheets. But the bottom line, what backed that up was this standing ovation practice, this practice that was extremely well, not a lot of confusions and mistakes and stress. Every now and again, a little bit would blip up, but it was fun. It was a husband and wife practice. My wife's a DVM as well. And so she joined the practice and we became a 3.5 doctor practice, all accredited all the way, that became really that special practice in town. Anyways, I could go on more, but that's kind of who I am. Oh, and then sold everything and then moved into practice consulting and created this company that I run now with my co-owner, Jeff Lee. He's our CEO. I'm kind of the president. I'm on the front lines doing podcasts, and our YouTube channel, Veterinary Practice Solutions, what's called Whiteboard Wednesday. That's our YouTube channel. Anyways, that's what I do now. I help practice owners develop their skills so they can create more time and money and develop these standing ovation practices. And by the way, when they go to sell them, the multiple is extremely high. They do very, very well because they're highly organized. That's another topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I know that's a awesome introduction and awesome story about who you are, where you came from, what you have been doing. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
Let me just talk about the standing ovation practice. So I just did a bit of thinking, and there's a few things I want to cover. So let me just jump into the very first thing. What is a standing ovation practice?
The standing ovation practice, and like many of us that I'm finding in our vet partners group and so forth, we can be musicians and have played in bands and so forth. But I like in a practice that when you start getting the components all working together, and we can talk about those components, when you start getting them all working together, there can be a harmony, a synergy that is greater than the sum of all parts, that creates this business that is well talked about, and that people stand up and give you a standing ovation by posting extremely great reviews, and importantly, just naturally referring their friends and family into you. They love the medicine. They love the people. The pricing is well in line. Like, I don't think we were never the cheapest price practice, but we didn't lose people because people loved us, and we charged fairly. Our fees are in what I call the Goldilocks zone of not too hot, not too cold. They were just perfect to be profitable, but and be able to pay our staff extremely well, at the same time not charging too much and excluding people. So we had an all open door practice that attracted a lot of incredible people that would refer their friends and family. That's the standing ovation. When you do that, you get a lot of referrals. You get a lot of people talking about you in the community. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's a great definition of a standing ovation practice. So what you're saying is it's a remarkable practice. You stand out. And not in a bad way, but in a good way. So
it's like that incredible performance that you go and see when people go in there. It's what I call that fifth star of a 5-star review that's above and beyond what people expect. And they go, it's like going to listen to a great musician and you are emotionally moved at the end of it. Nobody says stand up and we'll give you a t-shirt. Stand up and we'll give you $25. No, none of that stuff. You
right.
Emotionally stand up and applaud because of that above and beyond expected experience.
Yeah. Brian Chesky, who's the founder of Airbnb, talks about this concept about, 10 stars. What does 10 stars look? What does 11 stars look like? Beyond, what does 12 stars? Elon Musk comes and picks you up from the airport. He takes you to your, place, and then you go to Mars, or you go somewhere on a space rocket and you come back. That is like, like it's a, of course, what is it? 11 star. Oh, you have private reservations for a private dining with the best restaurant in town where the chef is personally serving you, so you can really define it. But I assume a standing ovation practice, you're not just looking at it from a patient experience standpoint, but you're also looking at it from the employee standpoint, from the owner standpoint, like work-life balance, all these perspectives. Is that not correct?
It's very, very true. In my view on work-life balance, this is just my own opinion, Naren, that if you really love what you're doing, and if your personal purpose aligns up, your vector of purpose aligns up with the purpose of the practice, then it becomes a really wonderful place to work. And that you're not always thinking about, what time is it so I can go home and start my life? Your life starts when you walk in the door. Now, I'm not saying that 80 hours a week isn't too much. It is. But certainly to work 40, 45 hours a week and love what you're doing, you'll find that your need for this work-life balance lessens because it's so much fun when you're in the practice. And I think that's the key thing. When you find the right people, when you train them, when you align your purposes for what you're doing, you become, that experience that's greater than the sum of the parts. And it's a place that you really love going to. You don't feel like driving by the practice in the morning. And, we had one client that did that. The practice was so stressful, he'd drive by a couple miles down the road and then finally go, okay, I got to turn and I got to go in. No, we're talking about that you love going into that practice. You don't mind spending those couple extra minutes. I think so. That's my concept of work-life balance, is that for me, it all blends together. Now, that being said, when I was working 80 hours a week, I was so exhausted that I would be in the grocery store hiding behind the Cheerios, to avoid a client because I was just so exhausted and overwhelmed. But when you get to the point where you have that balance in your life and you love going to work and you're not working, 80 hours a week, you actually love to see people. There's a calmness and a wonderful kind of energy that begins to happen. And I think the key thing, Raj, is we had a lot of fun and we attracted fun people. We started attracting, this is where a lot of my hiring, advice is, stop looking to find good veterinarians and start creating a great practice, not a good practice, but a great practice that veterinarians will find you. And I know that to be true because in the end, with our Standing Ovation practice, we had no trouble hiring. We did at the beginning because it wasn't an environment that was conducive to great people being there. They would come in and they would last a month and then leave. Okay.
Interesting.
So yeah,
it's almost like it's either like the opposite of a vicious cycle. This creates this momentum that builds and builds and builds. You get better people who are happier, who do great work, and that makes it even more of an experience and amazing outcomes for patients. It creates this positive cycle.
So for those listening, there are great people that would love to join their practice. Many of them are working at corporate, and most of us most graduates, myself included, within 1 to 4 years will change practices. So little shout out action tip. That's your hunting ground is local corporate practices with veterinarians that have been out 1 to 4 years. They're out there and they would love to join your private practice. Okay, that's, my tenure in practice was before corporates got really going. So, they were starting, I did not sell the corporate, I sold private when I did. But nowadays, that is a good source to find good veterinarians. I think there's corporates like Bamfield that are actually a good place to start for a graduate veterinarian. Give them a couple of years and then they can come work for you. It's a great place to start. But there are good veterinarians looking for your practice out there.
Thank you so much. I know we only have like 10 or 12 more minutes to go. So let me get to the meat of this. What are the main components of a standing ovation practice? Perhaps you can just list them and maybe let's go.
I'm going to list them out. Number one, you've got a full-time 24/7 hiring division that's always looking for good people. Not always hiring, but always looking. You've got somebody on that. So you're attracting good people. Number two, the exam room communication skills are superb. We're talking about the clients don't leave the exam room and going up to the CSR and saying, what did he say? They come out of there fully knowing. So with that, you get extremely good client compliance. By the way, the secret of good client compliance is communication. And number three, your fees are in that Goldilocks zone. They're high enough to be able to pay your staff well and not lose staff, high enough to give yourself a paycheck, and high enough that you're profitable, but not so high that they're turning people off. Number four, your veterinary medicine is extremely high quality medicine. You've got great equipment. It's really, really fun to work at there. You really love working at it there. You are getting great outcomes, and there's a great mentoring program for young veterinarians coming in there. I love mentoring young veterinarians. It's a blast. It's great. Right? Remember, you got to talk them off the ledge. You've got to push them to do that extra little bit in surgery. Don't just give them a big surgical case and then walk away. Be right there to help them. Number five, the next kind of pillar in there is, believe it or not, having some great quality control on your medicine. And if there are mistakes that get made, which can happen, that the mistakes are corrected. And importantly, the person or people that made the mistakes are corrected. That's a closed door activity. Praise in public, correct in private. People are soft and gooey on the inside, but they can make mistakes. Either they're not trained or their attitude's not correct. They need to be corrected. Correction. So in my practice, if somebody made a mistake, they wouldn't get fired. We would sit down and talk about it and work towards getting them corrected and on track for superlative veterinary medicine. And then, so a lot of that is continuing education, but importantly, correcting their communication skills. If a client was upset, then that's a communication skill. It's not always technical things. And then the final one is, having extremely good PR in the community. And I would do a lot of radio shows and television shows. Every year we would have a Christmas party and we would do goofy stuff like having bobbing for turkey wieners in the back. We'd have a bucket of water there and dogs would come back, and it was a complete hoot. It was super, super fun. So we got known for being a very, very happy, very high-end practice. And get a load of this, we never charged for a new patient. Even so, a new client with a new patient we charge for, an existing client with a new patient we wouldn't charge for. And some people say, well, isn't that devaluating your value? No, not at all. Clients understand the value of what they're doing. That's not an issue. What clients really loved about that was this: just come on in and let's meet them. That friendliness, all part of that, creating that extremely high, above and beyond expected experience, that standing ovation practice. And then
Perfect.
on top of that, there's the seventh one, finally, that the practice is profitable. It's reaching that 20%, EBITDA, that 20% profitability. And that's a lot of the work I do now, is helping practices get there.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So you went through the 7 components of a standing ovation practice. You're saying this is what makes or breaks the standing ovation practice. Now, let me ask you a practical question. You probably have seen a lot of practices that are not standing ovation practices. So what do you think is stopping these practice owners from creating a standing ovation practice?
The biggest thing, Niraj, and you're right, I've actually seen thousands over the years now. I started this company in 2004. We're a 20-year overnight success, right? And over there, I've seen a lot of people, and I've had my own experiences, and we're actively working with 200 clients on a weekly basis now, as they move through our programs, going towards that standing ovation practice. The biggest barriers are not time or money. It's the attitude of the owners and the staff. It really is. And, we've all met them. Sometimes we're running owners that are running a mediocre practice, but they think they know how to do it. We call it that can be kind of a no best attitude. Nobody can tell me how to do it. They're very tough to work with. You say, this is what I suggest you do. And they come up, now that'll never work. Right. So we'll find that. I'm sure you've run into that as well.
Yes,
In
yes.
your marketing company, we need to do this. Oh, no, I tried that. It'll never work. So, surely as human beings, we do drag our disappointments and failures forward into time. We can do that. But at some point in time, the really successful people leave all that stuff behind, and they're saying, what do I need to do to be more successful? So a lot of work we do on the front end, Naren, is working with people and their fixed ideas. Sometimes they're surrounded by people that are really emotionally low. They can be angry and grumpy and so forth. They're very emotionally down, and they've got themselves surrounded by people like that. And I'll tell you right now, one of the best things you can do is hire a really, what we call uptone, very positive, enthusiastic team. So all the way from that, sometimes, some major people have to be let go out of the practice. Their attitudes are not high enough and positive enough for that to really hitch onto that owner's dream, on where they want to go. So, yeah, I would say it's the practice owners and a lot of the staff that are in the way of reaching that standing ovation practice. And so it all starts with them. It all starts with you and I, Naren, is that decision we make to pursue greatness and reject mediocrity.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think these are all, I think the mindsets, I agree. Even in my experience, it's those mindsets, like for example, there is a school that is the best school in the country, or there's a school where there's drugs and crime and everything else, right? What's different? If you probably talk to the people in the really bad school, they'll say, oh, that is the way it is. We can't do anything about it. I mean, they just really believe in it. They feed into it. As opposed to the best people, typically like, well, how can we get better? How can we go to the next step? So it's just the way they think, the way they look at it. And there are these mindsets that I think make or break practice. So I assume.
Yeah, we call that the dimmer switch syndrome. The lights have been turned down, so every day they go a little bit lower. They think that's normal and nothing can be done about it. And then you and I walk in there and go, hey, you need to turn the lights up in here,
Yeah, or like the frog in a boiling pot. They don't realize, it's just over time they're where they are, but they can reverse it.
Right.
Thank you for that. Let me ask you, this is going to be my last question to you. Can you give me some action items? We talked about the standing ovation practice. So in the context of a standing ovation practice, what are some action items, take home, simple things that pretty much everyone listening, any practice owner listening, can perhaps try the next day? Just give us like a few simple ideas.
Okay, good idea. First off is look within yourself and see whether you want to run a great standing ovation practice. It all starts with you. Okay. And if you've got a lot of considerations why that can't happen, then just start to shove those aside. It can happen. Number two, define your purpose for why your practice is there. Like write it out on paper and have a staff meeting that week, gather everybody around, say, guys, I have decided, I've made that decision. You can tell your staff that we're going to create a standing ovation practice. And this is my vision. This is my purpose for what we're doing here. And you give everybody a copy and you go through it line by line. Number three, start hiring great people. And some of the best people, Naren, that I hired were clients, believe it or not. And was I a little nervous about hiring clients? Did I make some mistakes? Yes, I did. But in the end, every single one of my front end staff were clients at some point in time. So don't hire the ones that have come into you a lot, that are friendly, and whenever they come in, they kind of bring you uptone, and they can be sitting up front and they're talking to other clients up there. When I started hiring these upbeat, uptone clients, overnight the practice lifted up. I guess the fourth one would be is that when you run into staff objections and so forth, then use communication skills to get everybody on the same page, to align your realities. And you'll find that there's a lot of good people out there, but they may have objections that they just kind of knee jerk, they get triggered and so forth. You've got to be able to get past that. The final thing I would say just here is make sure, because we talked about this earlier, make sure that I said earlier that 95% of the people that we surveyed on fees and so forth, their front end fees and their back end fees are too low. Actually, maybe I didn't mention that. I teach a course on finance, on profitability, that's been extremely successful and growing and growing. And one of the key things I'll find, Naren, is that 95% of practices are too low in their fees. So you want to get your fees. You can't make up in volume when you're charging below cost. These practices are struggling with profitability, with attracting good staff, retaining good staff. And one of the key things that you need to do is make sure that your fees are correct to your area where you're practicing. And we develop some proprietary formulas to work out what the fee should be. And we've helped a lot of practices. We had one practice owner that came back, and after going over the formulas, increased his fees by 40%. I kid you not. That is not uncommon. 40%. He raised them, and 2 to 3 weeks later, he had an extra $20,000 in his bank account, and nobody said anything.
That's the funny part.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so he probably was afraid of I can't do this, and all of a sudden.
Well, that's right back to where your question number one, or the question before that. It's practice owners' fears that are holding us back, and you've got to look at that. Is that fear rational? Right. And so that's what our practice owner client did. He overcame his fears. He went and bit the bullet, raised those fees, and nobody said a word. Anyway.
Thank you so much, Joel. I really had so much fun here. I mean, literally, you gave so many ideas. Now, let's say if somebody wants to follow you, watch those videos, perhaps even get a hold of you. Is there a way they can do that? Can you give us a website, resources, some way to get a hold of you?
I always recommend people go to our YouTube channel, Whiteboard Wednesdays, and subscribe. And there are hundreds of little 4 to 5 minute videoettes on there that I've shot over the years. I've got a whole bunch more I got to get shooting this week that are here, that are there to help people. And there's many managers and owners that have loved those. Secondly, come onto one of our webinars. And if you go onto our website, veterinarypracticesolutions.com, there are free webinars there. There's free webinars on exactly what I mentioned earlier, how to set your fees correctly. You'll get the overall concept there. There's fees on how to build a practice and attract good veterinarians. And there's free webinars on, I just shot one yesterday on efficiency, how to run a more efficient and effective practice so there's more time and money left over. So go to our Whiteboard Wednesdays on YouTube channel and like that through Veterinary Practice Solutions, and go to our website, veterinarypracticesolutions.com, and find those webinars and sign up for a free webinar and come and meet us. And Naren, we're like you. We give a lot of free stuff away at the front end. At some point in time, we do have to charge clients like you. I do have staff that show up every week. They need a paycheck, Yes. So, but at the same time, there's a lot of resources out front there that we're really happy to help people with. It's super fun. Yep. And long live the private practice ownership. Everything we do, we are championing private practice ownership and building that standing ovation practice.
I I also want to take a minute to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, please share it with your colleagues and friends on social media. Also, please don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews will help other doctors and practice owners find us. Until next time, keep striving for excellence and making a positive impact in the lives of your patients and, of course, pet parents. Wishing you all an amazing week ahead. Till we meet again, your co-host, Naren Arulrajah. Have a wonderful week.